Hello and welcome everyone to today's News Tonight, the weeknight news show where we're joined by our special guests and our lovely patrons to discuss the day's gaming news. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by my good friends and GVG co-founders Ash Polson and Steve Bowling, as well as our very special guest, Janet Garcia, aka Gameonysus. So welcome, Janet. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And Steve, Steve tells me that you just launched your own Patreon, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back on Patreon. I actually have done this once before when I was freelancing, before I started IGN. So it's really nice to come back to the Patreon space and bring back some of those ideas, start with a whole bunch of new ones. I have people that have been with me since the very beginning of my career and people who just jump in the other day. So I love having that widespread of things. And yeah, it's soft launch was Monday. I'm doing a crazy 12-hour stream tomorrow to celebrate and push for more stuff on Patreon, promote it, get people involved. So yeah, it's been a busy week. This is like my Patreon world tour of several podcasts from my house.
Nice.
We're familiar with that.
That's a long stream.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, previously you were editor of guides over at IGN, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you poor thing. I've done guide work, and it's always like the one part of this job that I was like, I never want to do that, and then I got stuck doing it. I'm like, oh, this sucks.
That was also my experience. So I was like, oh, I don't think I ever want to do this, and then I tried it. I did find a lot of joy and pride in doing that work. It's a very different skill set, a very different style than what everything else in the industry is. There's so many different ways to be involved in this industry. But yeah, now, while I was there, I also had the privilege of being on a lot of our shows, or a lot of IGN shows, NBC, Beyond most notably, doing a few reviews, doing preview events. So I had at least a bit of a well-rounded experience outside of guides. But yes, it was absolutely a guides job, and I wrote a lot of guides pages and guides during my time there.
Yeah, I believe, I could be wrong, but I've created guides for IGN as well in the past as just a freelance writer, and I believe that I may have crossed your path once or twice while working on a couple different guides. I did Xenoblade Chronicles 2, The Evil Within 2, Destiny 2, a lot of 2s. If it was
it's a sequel. Bring on Steve.
Yeah. But I think I might have met you in person one time. I know when I was still doing guides for IGN, because Tina Amini is an old friend of mine. I was in San Francisco doing Kind of Funny, and she invited me in to just tour the IGN office, because I'd always wanted to see it. And I happened to have Imran Khan, who is a former guest on the show, with me as well, who is now on Kind of Funny and was at Game Informer at the time, because he always wanted to see the office too. And I think we walked through, I know I met a few folks. I met Sam Claiborne, and a few other folks whoever just happened to be around the office that day. I wasn't sure if you were there or not.
That's usually how those informal tours go. I might have been. It's really hard to remember because it's just basically whenever those things happen, you're seated at your desk and then you just kind of awkwardly turn. And I'm actually very short. I'm 5 feet tall, so everyone's already also extra taller, and you're like, ha. It kind of reminds me of when I feel like people coming through the IGN office is kind of like when you're at a large family get together and it's like, oh, this is your uncle's friend, and I'm like, hi, it's okay.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of fuzzy, but definitely possible because my desk was near there. So
yeah, there was definitely that weird vibe, because I know when I met Sam, because he was the one that stuck with me, just because Sam is a very unique looking dude to begin with. He very much resembles an old G.I. Joe character or something. He's got the big mustache.
That's a really good way to put it. That's funny.
Yeah, and so he sticks with you. And so when I met him, she was like, "Oh, hey, this is Steve Bowling," and you could tell that Sam was trying to put it together real quick. He's a real nice guy. And then she's like, "He does a lot of guides and emails you a lot," and she's like, "Oh yeah," and he was super friendly. But yeah, there was definitely that whole meeting a distant relative that you haven't hung out with ever. But the IGN
I feel like
office,
I should know your name, but I don't, and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do my best, but
or there's some people you just know their username and their avatar. I'm like, oh, you're the first occasionally hearing a freelancer's voice. Oh no, that'll throw me through a loop. I'm like, whoa, normally I just see name, text, the work we talk, but it's it's different when there adds that kind of human element to it that you don't always get to have when you have a large team across the world, different people doing different things.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, the IGN office too is like exactly how a fan would picture it, I think. Like I remember being like a teenager reading IGN like back when it was n64.com because I'm old. And I remember thinking like, wow, they must have games and cool stuff everywhere. And yeah, it's like that. It was really
I guess that's probably true. Yeah.
I've always heard about like the vault or the library, I guess, would just fill with just every game imaginable, which is always the thing that, ooh.
unless you're talking about the Metal Gear Solid copy that Greg Miller took with him that is in his studio with a Post-it with his name on it, I think. But anyway, we've rambled on enough about IGN. You have moved on to bigger and better things, hopefully. Like I see that your Patreon is off to like a very early, like a good early start. It's growing like by leaps and bounds. Is it how are you surprised, or I feel like maybe...
I'm super surprised. So I mean, a lot of it is oh geez, like I don't even know. Like I wasn't like right now, looking at the time of recording, I'm at $9.14 a month with 143 people.
Wow,
awesome.
I'm super surprised because
Nice.
as I'm sure y'all know, Patreon can go a lot of different ways over the course of like it can and then also it is also a month-to-month subscription too, so it's like maybe what if this month like 40 people, you just never know what's going on. It's never clear like how many people will come in or how they'll find you or what they'll pledge or what they can't pledge or how their lives changed. Like it's just very in flux, and I would have not been shocked at all or even super discouraged if this didn't do anything super impressive. I kind of imagined, okay, maybe like $100, maybe like 200. I figured it'd be kind of a modest-ish start, but I did have a belief that it'd be stronger than when I first did it back when I had like a much smaller following, a lot less time to commit to it too. Like Patreon used to be one project with a bunch of other freelance projects I had. So I used to do it like, okay, I'm going to make some content on my own, monetize it through Patreon. Then I'm also like trying to pitch, and I'm also doing like these other things. Now Patreon is just the everything of what I do, and everything's funneled through Patreon, and there's nothing outside of it. There's nothing supplementing it. It just is, which is kind of scary, as I'm sure y'all also relate to being creators on Patreon. But yeah, I was shocked because I'm not sure if anyone has enough success to ever predict that this could happen on like, especially on a day one. So much of that money came in, and those patrons came in on the first day. And I also launched like in the evening as well. It was like 6 o'clock PT. So I was like, okay, well, a few people will kind of like maybe trickle in, and then it just kept building. And then people got really excited too we have 3 goals posted originally. I just added a 4th because it's time to start adding more and thinking, what the future could be. But that first goal was that $500 mark. And once we started getting closer, it's like, wait, we can maybe reach this tonight. And then people got real excited. They were like, okay, like, let me join in and do this. I did a stream. I got the Kind of Funny raid. That kind of boosted a bunch of stuff on my Twitch. So then that's like another like income stream. So it's just, there's no way I could have predicted this. Part of that is also because, and I talk about this in my Patreon exclusive thank you video, which was one of the rewards for hitting that $500 goal, is, I try really hard to like believe in myself and what I'm doing, but the truth is like there's always some doubt, imposter syndrome's a real thing, and it's like the way I couched it was, so many people got to know me as like IGN's Janet Garcia from IGN Guides team, and I'm like, I don't really know if people are gonna be here for Janet Garcia as Gameonysus, even though I've been Gameonysus the whole time. Like that's been my handle, I'm the same kind of, I've grown over the years for sure, and IGN was a big part of that growth, but like I'm still me, but I'm like, did you really want me for me, or did you just like, I was a cool person that was at IGN, and now that I'm not on VC, you'll never see me again? And while that's certainly maybe the case with some people, and no shade to that, if you're just a fan of IGN and you kind of just roll with that, that's totally fine. People can be fans of what they're fans of, but it made it so that, okay, well, sure, we have like a lot of followers on Twitter through IGN. I got verified while at IGN. All these things felt tied to, this company, and I just wasn't confident that it would be successful even close to immediately or have any level of success. There definitely was the clock's ticking down. How much money do I have left to like stretch through my bills and figure this out? And I want to keep doing this, so I'm going to, do what it takes. And I like have support systems in place ready to go. But like to take a leap like this and have my community not just immediately catch me, but like lift me up in such a huge, humongous way. And, you know, I'm sure y'all feel this way with your Patrons, but like it means so much for someone to give money. I'm like, yo, you like, I mean, money's hard, right? Like getting money's hard. And most of Americans don't have even a savings account. Like just generally the bulk of the population doesn't have a lot of money and isn't rich by any means. So, you know, $5, $10, $25, whatever it is, it's like, and then you think of the market currently, right, with subscriptions. I'm like, okay, this is Disney Plus money, right? Like, I'm definitely not as good as Disney Plus. So, like, I don't, you know, and you start to kind of...
I don't have the entire Disney library.
Exactly. Like, I don't got it. You know, my vault is like this shelf of, like, you know, one Vita game that I got for Christmas behind me. Like, it's, you know, it's intimidating. And to have so many people just show up and show out, especially when I started with, you know, I had such a hard time determining, like, the tiers and the initial content, and it took so many conversations with my family, and with Greg Miller was a big part of helping me organize this Patreon as well. I called him and I had a conversation with him, and it took so many people telling me like, hey, you can't put in like, I'm gonna stream every day and it's gonna be 4 hours a day and there's gonna be 2 YouTube videos, you know, like these crazy goals, which I do want to work towards building, you know, a massive suite of content with a bunch of creators, but it took a lot of people reeling me in, being like, you can put something that's challenging but reasonable and people will still support you because people want to support you. And it was that thought and that kind of pseudo guilt of like, oh, but if I'm not doing like these crazy exclusive things and like really going, you know, like you really want to like hustle for that money and like prove yourself to a community that doesn't need you to prove yourself to them because they already are there for you. And it's just like, it's really hard to trust that and not like feel like guilty or hung up on it. So that's my long-winded rant on, was I expecting this? No, but it is absolutely amazing and I'm so freaking thankful for it. It's been great.
Everything you just said, Jen, is like, oh, right to the heart, because, you know, being associated with GX, is it just people there for GX, not me? Is, you know, all the, you know, just the whole litany that you just went through. Oh, I get it. I completely get it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm just glad to see you.
The three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just glad to see you so successful and have that support. It really does mean a lot. And yeah, using the Twitch to sort of help supplement, which is another thing I've been building. I've built up 3. This will be my 3rd separate streaming avenue that I've had to build up. One through Game Explain's YouTube, then Game Explain's Twitch, and then my own personal Twitch. So.
Oh yeah, I feel like everyone's had like this suite of different channels they've once ran or been involved with. So. For sure.
Yeah. One thing.
Before
go ahead.
Just before we move on to the news or whatever's next, just a couple of things in the chat I want to address. First of all, Angel Martinez. First time I'm able to make it live. Looking forward to good vibes, especially for today. So welcome, Angel. Please let us know if I'm mispronouncing your name, and I'll certainly correct that. Also, our patron Stephen Turquoise, it's his birthday today. So happy birthday, man!
Birthday.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
Just wanted to address those 2 things before we got too much further in.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention was that Janet talked about imposter syndrome, and I think everybody that creates content feels that at some point, like because you're doing this thing that, like, I think games journalism or any type of games content creation is really a gig you get into because you love what you're working on, right? Like everyone is like, wow, you know, and even years into this, almost a decade in for me, like I still have those moments where I think I'm just a dude that really likes to play games and I'm writing about them. What makes my opinion, you know, any more relevant than anybody else's?
Yeah.
Or what makes it worthy of broadcasting to the world, you know? And you have to remember, like, I remember like every opportunity I've been given or I've had is something that was earned, you know, like nobody just said, oh, well, Steve Bowling, he bought so many video games, he should be allowed to talk about them. You know, they don't just look at how many dollars you've spent or how many time you've put in playing. Like, you know, 9 times out of 10, someone's looking at something you made just out of pure passion and then deciding like, oh, hey, you know, maybe we should let this person do this for money. And so, you know, and I can speak to the quality of your work at IGN. I've seen a lot of the stuff you've done there. You're absolutely incredibly talented, and you deserve every bit of success you have. And you know, I think if you have attained any level of success, it's not something that was handed to you. It was earned.
Absolutely.
So, but I totally get the feeling. Like, I definitely understand it deeply, way more deeply than I wish I did.
And like, I get that people mean well when they say things like, "Oh, you're so lucky. I would love to be where you are." And it's like, I know they mean well. They're not saying you didn't earn it, but at the same time, I'm so sick of hearing that sometimes. It's like, yes, I am lucky because there is always at least a little bit of luck in any, good situation, of course. But it isn't just luck, man. You earned that. You worked your way there. So, I mean, there are, of course, people out there who fail upward. But in general, people... if they got to where they are, it's because they earned it. Never in games. Ever.
This person before.
Never.
Yeah. But, I mean, just in general, though, if you are enjoying some level of success or notoriety, it's because, maybe there's a little bit of luck there for sure. Right place, right time, but you earned that. And so, just props to you and congratulations on your successful launch.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the news, Steve, we unfortunately have to talk about a sad bit of news that we discovered shortly before this, and it's just I saw it. You posted it, and I was like, "What? There's no way!" And I don't have it with me right off the bat. Find it. I'm sorry. Here it is. So, Twitter user by the name of Toads for Smash has tweeted out that they're an administrator of this Twitter account created by Brian Cooper, who many also know as the creator of the Twitter account Japanese Nintendo. And a few minutes ago, they received a message from a friend of Brian's who tried many times to contact him in the past few days after his sudden disappearance online at the end of November. But it looks like Brian Cooper of Japanese Nintendo sadly passed away on November 27th, 2020. And there's no other real details about it. It's just that's what happened. And it's a real shame because he was very good at what he did. And I know we used a lot of his articles and news at Game Explain. A lot. Like he just had that and we'd source him and just be a major presence. It sucks, man. It sucks.
Yeah. I didn't know Brian personally. I had talked to him on Twitter once or twice, thanking him for creating something that we ended up using in a video or asking him for permission to run some of his content. And he was always very, very nice, very approachable, What really bums me out about this is that he had expressed interest in being on the channel at some point, just for like a discussion video or something. And would have been more than glad to have him. It just wasn't, GX wasn't really structured that way. And I wish I had thought to reach out to him about GVG before now. And
he would have been perfect to have on.
Yeah, he really would have been. He would have been a great guest. So I don't know the circumstances surrounding his death, but obviously, it's a huge loss. Like we're, someone that we indirectly worked with, and for the fans of his and the fans of his content was great. So I just I feel bad. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the people close to him. This is never the kind of news that I want to start out a show with, but it also I would rather recognize his passing than choose not to.
Right. No, I mean, I think all we can really say is that our hearts go out to his family and his friends and loved ones. And it's just always the most tragic thing when something like this happens. And 2020 took one more, and it's awful. And I would have loved to have him on the show too. I really would have. I didn't, like you, Steve, I didn't know him personally, but of course, it doesn't matter. I can still feel empathy, and I feel a lot of it for those who in his circle and in his family and friends. So. Rest in peace.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to echo those sentiments as well. And again, I haven't had like any personal connection at all, but I think this is such a small industry, and it's really rare to. It's odd because you can meet a lot of good people, but also there's not that many people in the industry, and sometimes it can be hard to find like those connections and those people who you really admire. So obviously, it's not just like a matter of work, but it's always sad to lose anyone that has a positive presence in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is interesting that you mentioned that. Like, it really does, there's hundreds of people employed in just our little corner of the industry. But it does like feel like you always end up seeing the same people in the same places when you get to leave the house. But, so yeah, rest in peace, man. It is definitely a shame. Like everything everybody said, I couldn't agree with more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on to the actual news. And first one's kind of interesting, but let's go ahead and bring it up. So, Nintendo has acquired Next Level Games, and that's cool. that's really cool.
That's
but
cool.
in kind of addition
Next
to this,
story.
that was also kind of been being talked about in regards to Next Level Games, how the kind of irony of Nintendo acquiring them is that their Mario Strikers series and the portrayal of Mario characters is a big reason Nintendo started clamping down on the portrayals of Mario. Because you got to remember, this was the game where Wario, in his victory animation, did the suck it motion. So
it was Waluigi.
Yeah, I thought I said Waluigi. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I was actually going to say, and I mentioned this in our Discord server last night, or when this news broke, like, I love that was Nintendo's main takeaway. We really need to clamp down on the portrayal of Mario and not, hey, we should probably make sure Waluigi telling players to suck it doesn't make it through QA again. Like, how is that not the number one takeaway here? But yeah, but good for Next Level. It's funny. I knew that they hadn't been bought by Nintendo, but it's kind of one of those things where you just kind of assume that they already were because they've worked so closely with Nintendo for so long. But yeah, hey, good for Next Level. They've obviously done great work for Nintendo with the Striker series, Luigi's Mansion 2 and 3. So this can only mean good things for them both, I imagine.
Luigi's Mansion 4 confirmed. It's happening.
Yes.
It's going to be in an Airbnb. Just a series of haunted Airbnbs.
Nice.
That's what I'm hoping for. It's what I envision. They already left the mansion when they did the hotel, the last game. So Luigi's Mansion is wherever, your heart is haunted, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm excited because I'm a huge fan of that series. I think it's like one of the unsung hero series that Nintendo now officially has, right? With in terms of the modern era Luigi's Mansion. But I can't wait to see more. It was like such a great game on Switch. It's only been improving as a series. So obviously they do more than just Luigi's Mansion. But personally, seeing this news, I'm like, Luigi's Mansion. That's all my brain can think about because it's my favorite thing that they do. And I just think that series is like so underrated. It's one of my favorite launch games, especially from the old era where a lot of launch games were different.
Yes.
It was like just something that you needed to play, right? And I think that was like one of the more fun, innovative ones. So that franchise in general is just so exciting. And this definitely does feel like a put a ring on it finally acquisition where I, again, barely even remembered that this wasn't a Nintendo studio because it's so synonymous in my mind, and I think a lot of players feel the same way. But it's great to see this be an official thing, and it just kind of, bolsters Nintendo's already amazing portfolio. Like, no one's really complaining about there not being first-party Nintendo games, but this is how, the best get better and stay on top. So, not to necessarily say that they are number one in the space, but I think they do first-party really well. I don't know if anyone can even really debate that. So this is great.
Yeah. As Fantasy Thinker fan pointed out in the chat, it's basically the equivalent of Sony buying Insomniac. You associate Insomniac so hard with Sony that them buying is like, oh, yeah, why hasn't this happened before? But I think it's the same sort of thing where Spider-Man was such a huge success for Sony that they we got to get this on lockdown with Insomniac. And I think I saw Luigi's Mansion sales is around 6 million for 3. So I think they saw the sales of that game in particular, like, okay, yeah, we need to lock them down.
Oh, man.
And it helps that Next Level Games is just freaking incredible with their lineup between, of course, Mario Strikers. They've done the Punch-Out Wii. I don't care what anybody says. I like Metroid Prime Federation Force. I think that was a fun little game.
Right.
Just
So
bad
you're
timing.
who bought it. No, okay.
We got a couple of patrons in the chat who I really would like to see work at Next Level because I love their ideas for Next Level's future. You got Luigi, Charlie Bird, Luigi's Punch-Out. I'd play that. And Flaming Highwayman, Waluigi's Mansion. I mean, it just makes so much sense, right? Mm-hmm. So, but Luigi's Punch-Out especially, I would play that. That sounds pretty great.
The one thing that I would love to see carry over from this acquisition to non-Next Level games is their animation tech. I mean, Derek, you listed Punch-Out and Luigi's Mansion 3, those are two of the most beautifully animated 3D games of their respective eras. Like Luigi's Mansion 3, like I said this when it first came out, it looks and feels like you could easily turn it into like a Saturday morning cartoon. And I still think that the way they portrayed the Mario characters is better than anything Nintendo has officially done ever. So I hope that when they go to make like Mario Odyssey 2 or whatever the hell the next mainline Mario is, that they get Next Level in there to help just animate the characters, because man, they look so good in Luigi's Mansion 3. And I'm excited that now they're an internal developer, because that means, you know, there might be some more sharing of notes or whatever or distribution of tech.
It is too bad, though, that like the Strikers series caused them to want to clamp down on portrayals of Mario. And I mean, I assume that probably extends to all Mario Universe characters, only because Strikers Charge had such a, striking art style in the sense that it really went to places that you never expected Mario character designs to go. Like, Mario was angry. He punished Mario, was the one in Strikers Charged, as far as I'm concerned. And I'd like to see Nintendo continue to take those kinds of, I don't want to say risks. I don't think it was a real risk, but I'd like to see them continue to push the envelope with Mario character designs like that. And clearly it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how much I feel like Nintendo has decided that Link is like the major character that they will just screw with. Like, you know, new art style, sure, new design, whatever. Yeah, get rid of the tunic, put him in a blue shirt, it's fine. You know, let him wear his chonies in a Nintendo Switch shirt with an axe. It's cool. Like, I mean, I feel like Nintendo has just decided that they're gonna take all their risks with Link and let Mario be like their Mickey Mouse that, you know, only deviates so
Mario's
much.
Totally Mickey Mouse.
Oh, he totally is.
Oh, totally.
So I don't know. I've come not to expect like huge risks being taken with the Mario franchise, and I guess I'm okay with that.
Right.
But yeah.
But also, Toad drives a bus in Luigi's Mansion 3, and I don't think it's been talked about enough.
That's true. How does he use the pedals?
That's wonderful. And every interaction Luigi has with Polterpup is just heartwarming. Every one of them.
I'm still puzzled.
But maybe. I'm excited what comes next. But if I had to guess, probably Luigi's Mansion 4.
Probably. I'm thinking. Well, there already was kind of one. Lights.
There was a Poltercat, yeah.
You know.
Honestly, I can't help but be held up on the Simon and Richter reveal trailer for Smash. I want Luigi in a full blown castle, like exploring a Castlevania-like setting would be freaking awesome.
Cool.
That would be so cool.
Fighting other monsters along with Ghost. I think that's how you
slowly going
up
those stairs. You know, the whole nine.
Yeah, exactly.
That was absolutely one of the best Smash reveal trailers still to this day. Simon and Richter. One of my favorite, this is a complete aside, but one of my favorite things about it was specifically about that one was watching reaction videos by people who were like, hell yeah, Castlevania. Oh, I'm such a big Castlevania fan. Hell yeah, Simon and Belmont. Who's Richter? Richter? What? There were so many people who were like all about Castlevania, but then you could see that they did not know who Richter was, and that just always tickled me.
Sometimes you get those moments where you get to see like how really into the certain series people are.
I mean,
and how much you're just going for the clickbait. Yeah,
but you know, I'm okay with like, I mean, because I'll be the first to mention, like, especially within certain games, like I was super hyped for Sephiroth, right? But like, you throw up a character from Final Fantasy 2, I'll be like, what? Like, I don't know who.
Hell yeah,
are,
Furion joins the battle finally.
Yeah,
yes!
I would be lost. Yeah. So I could easily have that same like embarrassing scenario where I'm like slapping the desk, going crazy about Sephiroth, and then not knowing who the hell the next guy is at all. Just because I have a very specific set of Final Fantasies I've played. So I don't know. I mean, but if you haven't played Symphony of the Night, which is where I know Richter from, you should, because it's not just one of the best Castlevanias, it's just one of the best games of all time.
Hell yeah, it is.
Anyway, that's my piece on not knowing characters.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next from Next Level. There you go. But let's go ahead and move on to our next bit of news. Pop that up. So, Sony Computer Entertainment has announced that production has ended on all but one model of the PS4. The only one continuing is the standard jet black 500GB Slim model. Now, I saw this in relation to Sony in Japan. Is this now applied to everything? No, it's still just Japan as of right now.
But this is surely the kind of thing that just moves west in a couple weeks or months or whatever.
Yeah,
I feel like it's only a matter
that's definitely
of time.
true.
Yeah. Which
It's
it's
getting rid
an
of that
interesting approach.
Console confusion.
Well, it's an interesting approach just because of how hard they're still pushing the PS4 software-wise, right? I mean, who expected games like Horizon Forbidden West to get a PS4 version, Spider-Man Miles Morales? Like, they actually are kind of pushing the PS4 still as a viable alternative, viable option.
I don't think
so. It's
this
kind
is...
of an interesting.
See, I don't think this is too crazy. No? For one, you're largely releasing those games for the people that already have PS4s. Like the vast, you're not looking to sell a whole lot of new PlayStation 4s, because obviously Sony's imperative is that if you're going to buy a PlayStation, they definitely want you to buy the PS5, not the thing that's on its way out. So one, they're creating a greater price disparity, right? So like your PS4 is now going to be $100-$200 cheaper than a PS5, right? Your only option for a PS4 if you need a new one. The other side of that is that it also is the least performant model. So it's like, the lowest end, creating a visual disparity. So if your consumer who isn't up on shit like we are goes into the store and goes, okay, I want a PlayStation. Should I get the PS4 or should I get this new 5? And then, they pull up like a screenshot or whatever. Because I'm sure there will be accompanying marketing materials for this crap. Like, oh, hey, this game looks very cyberpunky on PS4. Whereas on PS4 Pro, on PS5, people have faces and not claw hands and stuff. So I think that there's like it makes sense. You want to make the PS4 one. You want the only model available to have a huge power disparity and a huge price disparity. So people understand like this is the down the line, downgrade model. And if you want the new hotness, you got to drop the $500 and get the PS5. So I think it makes sense.
It's a good way to look at it.
We've seen most companies do some flavor of this thing. Like Nintendo does this, Microsoft does this. I'm sure that we'll find actually Microsoft already did this. So the Xbox One X has been gone for months now. You can only get the One S. So they did the exact same move.
I don't even think I
want to
realized.
say a month or
I'm not sure
a month and a half
that.
back.
Well, they have so many SKUs. Like, I feel like they've been... I mean, everyone's kind of had a lot of SKUs for a while, but I feel like Xbox, like Microsoft specifically, really hangs their hat on multiple SKUs for multiple things. I think a lot of, as we've gone on with time, it's been a lot more standardized to have like a normal model and eventually like a pro or a premium version of that. So that's not exactly new, but I feel like that's sort of their whole shtick, right? The play anywhere thing. In order to play anywhere, you got to have some options on where you're playing. So and there it makes sense because it's like the souped up model is like very competitive with like the new model, so it just makes sense to pull that one back. I guess this also doesn't super surprise me because it does make sense, and it's again a Japan thing, so the US still has production, but I don't know, it's kind of sad, like the passage of time, like it's weird to think that we're now like gonna eventually let the PS4 go out to pasture. That stuff just always kind of trips me up a little bit. I think this also means that we're not going to see any more collector's editions for the PS4, maybe a PS5 collector's edition, even though there's not normal editions. Like, I'm interested to see when we're going to see the first of that, because I remember when they had the Last of Us 2 PS4 Pro, everyone's like, cool, why would I buy this? And then I'm sure some people bought it because, it was a cool design and, if you love the series, but it sort of felt like, why are you still making this product when like this next one's out? So I think it makes sense to kind of pull that old one, and especially because, and I don't know how their like production process works, but it's been a lot of work to try to even get PS5s to market. So I imagine they're going to want to like put a lot of those efforts towards the new thing rather than keeping the old thing going.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. I didn't think about like the supply chain piece to this whole thing. Like they have only so many production lines, right? At some point they're going to want to transition some of those over to make them more PS5s. I'm
pretty sure they want to ramp up PS5 with how hard it is to actually get a PS5 right now, so
yeah,
that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I could see that.
I mean, it's not that hard. Steve and I have one. I'm kidding.
I was kind of close.
$1,000 on eBay. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get one if you want to pay the price of 3 of them right now.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you're like super lucky and have a wife who is able to snag you one by paying attention to Wario 64. So thank you, baby. Thank you so much.
I do pay attention to Wario 64 now. I actually I was given a heads up that a PS5 was available. Not like after the last podcast, or after last TNT, and it was a bundle where it was included an extra controller, Sackboy, Spider-Man, and Demon Souls, and Last of Us Part 2. Even though it was on PS4, it was like, I don't have that. So basically, all games I'm interested in and don't own for $830, and I'm like, you know what? This seems like a pretty good deal for me. And I go to click on it, and because I'm accessed it through Twitter, it went back, which means I had clicked through a few things to even get to that point, and it went back all the way back to Twitter itself because I was on mobile at the time. And by the time I got back to it, sold out. So
eternal sadness.
Nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
No luck for me. Oh well. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is I guess it's making you uniform because the Netflix app has been removed from the Wii U and 3DS eShops, and the service is being discontinued in June. So right in line and parity with the Switch. With no Netflix.
Right.
I was just thinking
Pretty
about
much.
Janet's earlier comment about the passage of time, and this is pretty much it. Like, I remember when I was excited that these were coming to these consoles, and now I'm like, oh, not only are those consoles in a box in my garage, but also now they're just getting services removed from them left and right. Like Miiverse is gone. The eShop will probably get turned off in a year. So I'm like,
man,
oh, well.
don't say that because I know. Oh, I'm so mad you said that because now I know I have to turn on my Wii U, and the eShop of the Wii U is so good. Like it's so good. They have like all these you can get all these N64 these old games that like Nintendo won't sell you for some reason, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to just like impulse drop like $50 on a bunch of N64 ports that I'm not gonna play, and I don't want to do that. I don't got that kind of money. But yeah, this is kind of well, I would say it's a bummer, but it's honestly not, only in the sense that, does this mean Netflix on Switch? I've been waiting for Netflix on Switch for forever, and people always ask me, why do you care? Netflix is on everything. Are you really watching Netflix on your Switch? And the answer is yes, because I'm a nerd. Like sometimes, like even if I have like a smart TV or something, which most of my TVs I think at this point are smart TVs, sometimes it's nice to just be able to drop it in there. Like I've watched Hulu on there. It's convenient. I don't got to switch the HDMI's out. Like you can't have a Switch and judge me for wanting Netflix on Switch. It ain't hurting nobody. You got Funimation. We got Hulu. Where is Netflix?
That's true.
I mean, it's just weird. Like, like where is Netflix?
We just got Funimation.
It's like they did it to make us mad. Like, I don't understand why. So much of what Nintendo does, I'm like, I feel like you want to hurt me. And I don't know why, because I show you nothing but kindness and appreciation. Or maybe not kindness, but I buy a lot of your crap.
You.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just wait for our April 1st episode. I'm still...
it's funny, Janet.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I'm waiting for April 1st, like after the eShop apocalypse, with whatever Nintendo is doing.
Oh yeah, Nintendo.
I'm sure we'll be pretty salty that day.
Probably.
It's funny that you talk about that reaction, Janet, because I kind of had much the same thing happen on Twitter several months ago. I made kind of what I thought was an innocuous tweet saying, "Man, where the hell is Netflix on Switch?" And I figured, it's pretty neutral. Who wouldn't agree with that? It's pretty obvious. A lot of comments kind of clap back at me saying, well, why do you need Netflix on your Switch when you have it on your PS4 or your smart TV or your iPhone or your this or your that? But what if I want it on my... Like, what's wrong with having it on Switch? Like, why wouldn't... It seems like the most obvious partnership. And, Nintendo and Netflix have partnered on Wii U and 3DS. So it's just a really weird missing feature on the Switch, I guess. And you can say that, well, use your Switch for games. Okay, but the Switch also has Hulu and Funimation and all this other stuff. So why not? It's...
Yeah, I think it's a little weird. But having more options is never a bad thing. Like, there's no such thing as a bad additional option, because you can always just not use it. So,
right.
I personally am probably not the person that's going to watch Netflix on my Switch, but I also said that about Funimation, and now I watch Dragon Ball on my Switch. So I don't know. I agree with Janet, though. One of the things I love, like yesterday, for the first time in forever, I decided to play Ring Fit Adventure, And
Nice.
I was playing it in my room, and I just don't have like a whole big open space to be twisting around like a jackass in my room. And I just, decided I had the freaking leg strap on and I had the ring con in my hand, and I was like, I'm just going to go do this downstairs. And I just grabbed my Switch out of the dock, ran downstairs, put it in the dock downstairs, and it instantly reminded me of why I love the Switch so much. Because I was like, I didn't have to do anything to get that working. Like, I didn't even have to turn on the TV downstairs. I just put it in the dock, and the Switch took care of literally everything besides the actual working out, which made me feel terrible. So, I could easily see, like, just chilling in bed, watching Netflix on the actual Switch, and then just being like, you know what, I want to see this on the TV, and throwing it in the dock and continuing on the big screen. That is something that no other device in my house can replicate. Like, my phone can't do that. My iPad can't do that. So it is like a unique thing. I can just choose whatever TV in the house I want my Switch content on and just drop it in a dock, and I'm good to go. So I definitely see the appeal. Do I think I'll do it? No, but I don't trust myself.
It can happen.
If the option is available, I will at some point use it.
Well, and as you said, I mean, it just comes down to more options is always better than less. So there are people out there for whom they would be hyped for Netflix on Switch. It fills a niche in their lives, and why not have it? So
yeah, why not?
Maybe it'll still happen. It is weird though that we're more than 3 years now into the Switch's life cycle and still no Netflix.
It is very
so
odd.
Weird. Yeah,
There's no themes either. Maybe they've just decided we're just gonna do something else. Like, I don't know.
I wonder if this is one of those
yeah.
like shady like backroom mysteries that we'll never get an answer to. Like, when for years Amazon wouldn't sell Nintendo hardware and nobody talked about it, and then suddenly they're like, oh, Nintendo's releasing the Switch, that's probably going to sell, we're gonna fix this right now. Because right before the Switch came out, Amazon was suddenly selling Nintendo stuff again, but we never learned why they stopped in the first place.
Right.
So maybe there's some kind of internal beef with Netflix, and we're just not going to know it until someday Netflix appears.
Maybe there was beef with one person at Amazon, and that person moved over to work at Netflix. And then
Yeah,
there we go.
Ooh, there you go.
It's just one.
Also,
Sure.
this isn't real. No one listening to this thinks that it's actual.
I was thinking
that is not how business works. I hope.
I was thinking there's somebody of influence over at Netflix who is just a huge Mother 3 fan and said, hey, Nintendo, if you don't bring Mother 3 out on Switch, we're not bringing Netflix to Switch. And that's the truth behind the matter.
Wow.
Obviously, it's not.
There you go.
But,
Wow.
but I like
That
to,
would be a really good
I
one.
like my headcanon. Yeah.
Some tinfoil hat stuff.
Yeah, right?
Yep. All
Tinfoil
right.
beanie hat stuff.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump over to our next topic. And we have a new Spirit event coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's been a while since we've had one. And this one is in relation to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, where we have 3 new spirits coming based off Young Impa, Teriko, and Koga. It's misattributed to as Suga, but that is definitely Koga in that artwork. I
that was
double-checked
my
before
bad.
we did
Yeah.
this. No, it's in the article itself.
Is it? Yeah,
Nintendo
I
Life.
should have looked.
But yeah, that's Koga, and it's cool that those are coming back. They're expanding the amount of spirits once again. But of course, the big thing here is, well, I guess Impa is no longer a character, as many people are probably starting to say.
Yeah. Also, I do want to make it clear that those 3 characters are just the ones that are shown in the image. There may well be spirits beyond that are in the.
No, there's
event.
probably
We
only
don't really
3.
know.
That's
You think-
they
yeah, it might
typically
only
keep
be
it to
3.
3 or 4.
Yeah. It might only be those 3. But yeah, I think that's the main takeaway here. And I mentioned this on Twitter yesterday, and I got some people saying, well, Min proves that spirits don't disconfirm characters. To an extent, that's true, but I think there's a difference here between launch spirits, like day 1 spirits, and DLC spirits, or ones that are added later on in events like these. I don't think launch spirits disconfirm characters, but I do think post-launch spirit events like these more than likely point to the idea of a character not being playable. Don't know that. It's not a hard and fast rule, but that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I hold on to the hope, since I want Shantae, and she is a spirit already, but that's half Genie Hero artwork. We have brand new Seven Sirens artwork of Shantae that can easily fill in for
and
our,
she was a launch spirit.
Spirits. And she was.
I think as long as enough time passes, everyone will be in Smash. You know,
eventually,
like,
everyone
just
literally.
Give it like a good, 200 years, and everyone you can conceivably imagine that's ever existed in the fictitious realm will appear in this game. So it's just a waiting game, honestly.
Be patient.
But
yeah,
I mean, all jokes aside, it seems like what this also says to me is like Smash Bros. Ultimate's still getting like support in 2021 and likely beyond. I'm not sure if they've made announcements on like how far out they're supporting. Usually they make that more when they're ready to stop supporting something. Then we also saw them roll that back with Splatoon, which was interesting. Maybe this is also a way to kind of offset the fact that I think COVID obviously hit everyone hard, but Nintendo has been very transparent about the ways that COVID has affected, I think, their plans and what they normally do. So I think giving support for games like this is really valuable to the audience, and for like them to have some like develop some good faith where it's like, okay, well, we're still doing stuff, like we're not irrelevant, we're keeping things alive. It's especially good to kind of pull this in with Hyrule Warriors, which is one of their few kind of marquee games of last year. So I'm not sure if this is also them maybe trying to push for more sales with Age of Calamity. I'm not sure what the numbers are offhand, but I do know just from like, being in the space, people seemed like they liked it, but it wasn't really hot in the streets the way I thought it would be. When I first heard of Age of Calamity coming out, even though I'm not like a Hyrule Warriors person, I'm like, oh, it seems like I really got to play this, got to part of the prep for Breath of the Wild 2. But then when it came out, it kind of just, at least in the critic space, sort of just fizzled out a little bit kind of quickly. So maybe this can also add some more hype to that and kind of be a win-win for Nintendo. Again, I didn't do Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. I'm not someone playing Smash Ultimate all the time. It is a game that I bust out when we're doing like a party thing and someone really wants to play. I like Smash a lot, but I'm definitely in a non-problematic way a Melee person who's like, I probably played more Melee in the last year than I did Ultimate. And that's not to say that I'm good at the game. Somehow I'm surprisingly bad, even though I put so many hours, an obscene amount of hours in my childhood, but I just never learned to wave dash. So, but I got time. The year just started, so we'll try to get it together.
Make that a Patreon.
I love that
goal.
You said in a non-problematic way. That's I love how you qualified that. Nice.
Because that community sometimes. Let's make that distinction. But
Derek and Steve know very well how I feel about the Melee community.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a huge Smash fan myself, and I play tons of Ultimate. But yeah, well, speaking of Age of Calamity, though, I think maybe critically it may have faded a little bit quickly. But as I understand it, it became the best-selling Muso game within like 3 or 4 days of sales or something, like of all time.
Yeah, but how?
So definitely sold
sales-wise.
very well for Koei Tecmo. But I don't know if it means. I don't know if it stayed in the public discourse for too long. I think it lasted about 2 or so weeks, which is.
I mean, it
fine.
came out at exactly the wrong time. Like, I hate to say that, but I mean, we had 2 new consoles. We had Cyberpunk, which nobody knew was going to be a tire fire yet. But, so people were already, like, when Age of Calamity came out, most of the gaming discourse was focused on other stuff already. And so people, like, observed it for a moment, and I feel like it moved out of the public consciousness a little faster than Nintendo probably wanted it to.
I think it also helps that it doesn't take nearly as long to complete that game. I saw plenty of people 100% it within a few weeks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I beat the game, like, crit path, but I still beat the game in, like, 3 days or a week or something, like, a very short amount of time, because I remember spending weeks on the original Hyrule Warriors, having to take breaks, come up for air and stuff. But to bring this back to Smash, I want to quote a different Nintendo game that'll help give my opinion on all of this spirit debunking and stuff. It comes from Eternal Darkness, and the quote is, "We're overwhelmed by a very human need to weave a web of meaning where there may be none. Spirits don't deconfirm characters. Like, the community has made up all these rules.
Yeah.
Like, meat costumes deconfirm.
Yeah. I mean, there was There was box theory before the game came out. People were like, there's so many slots on the box. Like, that's how many characters are going to be there. There was, the Smash community, like, seizes on every tiny little nugget of information, and sometimes just the absence thereof, and decides like all these weird, like, I don't think that Sakurai or his team have, like, they don't refer to their Smash commandments and go, well, shit, we wanted to make Impa, but we did a spirit, so we're not going to. Like, I don't, they're like, well, it says on GameFAQs we can't do that, you guys, so we're not, Papa Gino said we can't. So I just don't, I don't know. I feel like if Sakurai wants to make young Impa, he'll make young Impa. That being said, I don't know. Like, I feel like I think it just comes down to more development timelines, business decisions, what deals Nintendo has made with third-party licensors. He was very clear about the fact that, like, Nintendo decided these, that he didn't have his usual amount of input. So I wouldn't write them off. Like, I definitely wouldn't write them off just because Nintendo definitely knew Hyrule Warriors was coming out. They definitely knew what characters they were putting in the game. So they may have just, said, hey, this is coming. And maybe the whole thing was, well, we can't really finish the character in time for the release. And they're like, make a spirit then. Just upload a PNG into the game and put a challenge around it so we can promote it within Smash.
There you go.
I think the speculation is fun to a point.
Oh, no.
I think trying to speculate around that stuff is fun to a point. But when it gets to that toxic point, right, where people are saying, no, these are the rules, and Sakurai has rules. He has one rule that he has stayed consistent about throughout all the years, and that is no Goku. No Goku. No characters that are not originally video game characters. Damn, otherwise, I think pretty much anybody's fair game. But the reason I personally speculate that this probably means no Zelda characters, or at least Age of Calamity characters in the remaining DLC is Rob Armanx's point here in the chat. But why add Resident Evil as spirits if they were going to be a character? Why not just wait for an RE character? So that's why I kind of feel like post-launch spirits are kind of in their own weird thing. However, I'm not saying that it is a rule. That's just my own speculation. I hope we get Impa or Mifa or Urbosa as a playable character. I want all three of them very badly. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I would definitely take Impa because I feel like she'd be the closest I'd get to getting like a Naruto character in Smash. And I would be there for it.
Is she not too similar to Sheik though?
I don't think so because she
doesn't matter.
No?
That
too.
They'll figure it out. That's for like, and that is well, I guess I don't know how much like the move sets like are decided upon or whatever. Because Sakurai is very much like a developmental hitman. He's like, what are we making? All right, I'm making it. He makes his stuff really well. So like, shout out to Sakurai because he does great work. But yeah, I definitely think just to kind of like also echo there's not really this grandiose conspiracy theory pre-planning thing. I think they are kind of just to an extent going with the flow of things. This is also like this is the kind of first era of Nintendo even having ongoing support like this for their games. So I think I'd be shocked if they had some really elaborate plan for it. I think this is sort of like the beginning of that era, and they're still sort of figuring that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, all I know is I hope we get. I mean, I want Sakurai to get all the vacation time he wants. But selfishly, I also do hope we get a Fighters Pass Volume 3. I never want the Smash hype train to end. I don't think it's going to happen. But I just personally never want it to end. But, it has to. All good things must come to an end at some point.
Yeah, we'll see. But let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. We've got 3 more to get through here. And this one is the Xbox Series X put out a survey asking players if they want PlayStation 5 DualSense features in the Xbox controller. I'm guessing Microsoft saw all the praise the DualSense was getting. Was like, did we want in on this?
Yeah. Having used the DualSense for the first time last night, since I just got my PS5, I can see why they're asking, because it's a really good controller, man.
Yeah, where can I fill out this survey? Because, yes, absolutely. I want the DualSense to be able to play everything. I want to play Nintendo games with my DualSense, which I know, the same company that worked on the HD Rumble was the one that, worked on the haptic feedback and, the other elements of the DualSense, but, holy cow, you would never tell, because it is night and day in just how it's implemented. Obviously, we're still in the early phases where it's not like it's permeating every game. A lot of games are still barely getting kind of that next gen update, and then the next gen update maybe isn't as full-fledged as I'm expecting the next game in those franchises to be. I recently got FIFA 21 on PS5 and has only a little bit of that stuff. I'm hoping they kind of double down on it more come next year when they had more time to actually develop from the ground up, just specifically a PS5 SKU. But yeah, this is it, maybe I'm too crazy about it because it's early, there's always that immediacy bias, but the DualSense might be the best controller that I've ever played on.
Wow.
Both from form factor and from innovation. the use of audio in the speaker, the sensations in like Astro's Playroom, and also other games as well. Like it's not just an Astro's thing. Like this is implemented across other games, and yeah, it's fantastic. I would love to see Microsoft take a swing at it. Hopefully in a way that's more successful than like kind of how everyone was like, let's all get on motion controls. Like I'm not necessarily. I'm scared. The monkey's paw of let's all get on haptics is a little horrifying, but I
don't think they can
Microsoft
mess it up as
could
much
do
as they
it.
did with the Kinect.
No, and I also, I think Microsoft would be good at it as well from the standpoint of being really, like, what is the word? I'm kind of like adaptable is like, what am I trying? Accessible, thank you.
Yeah.
Accessible is the word I was trying to go for, because they've had such like great stuff in the accessibility space. I know Sony has to a degree too, like Last of Us 2 is like one of the like most accessible games ever, but I think they could really pull that off. So yeah, let's just put it in everything and make it better in the Joy-Con somehow. Joy-Con Pros on the Switch Pro. Yes,
please. It does give me kind of that vibe, like you mentioned, when everybody jumped on motion controls like halfway through the PS3 360 generation. They were like, oh no, the Wii is actually really popular. We need to copy this. And that didn't work. But
I mean, it could end up like Sony's 6-axis controller that they attempted at first with the PlayStation 3.
Yeah, that was a whole weird thing where they were like, oh, we can't include Rumble because it would mess with motion controls. And then, a couple years later, they're like, just kidding, we figured it out. So, yeah, I think that was really just a ploy to keep controller costs down. But I do agree with literally everything you said, Janet. I've been saying since I got my review unit for the PS5 that like the DualSense was the best thing about the system. Like, and that's saying a lot, because I love, the loading times being almost nothing. I love the user interface being like actually 4K and HDR and looking really nice. But the DualSense, the thing you interact with the most, is just incredible. Those haptic triggers, like it is really hard to tell somebody like, oh, they push back and it's really cool. Like you hear that and you're like, yeah, whatever. Okay. But then you actually play it and you feel it and you're like, wow, this is like transformative. This makes a huge difference. And I was really surprised to see that Microsoft just kind of stuck with what worked. I was like, they had to know that Sony was developing like a controller that did new stuff. And the Series X controller, it's a good controller, but it doesn't bring anything to the table really that the Xbox One controller lacked. So, even just, it doesn't even have a built-in battery, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think
right.
the failings, if you want to call it that, that's a little harsh, but that's just kind of the phrasing I'm going to use, of the Series X is also what you could argue are the successes, right? It's so, like, easy to transition over, like you don't even notice it. Like honestly, there are games I could boot up on my Series X, and other than like the load times, I don't know if I'd be able to tell. Like if you kind of gave me like the Pepsi challenge, right? But for the Series X and the other SKUs, like I don't know if I'd be able to tell. And part of that can be good. Everything just transfers over. It's simple. You set up the whole console on just your phone using the app. It's done. It's ready now, and there's not the whole like what we had with the PS5 where you're exploring and you're learning about the new settings, and there's like the share thing, and there's game help, and there's like all these extra bells and whistles that you have to get acclimated to. Xbox didn't have any of that, and some people find that really comforting and really nice, kind of like that iPhone upgrade. But for me, I like, especially in the gaming space, I like that shiny newness, even if it's just like different for the different sake. I miss the era where I had to pick out a cell phone, even though I'm just going to keep getting iPhones until, I don't know, Apple explodes or something, because like that's just the phone I have now. Like, and we all kind of have the same like 1 or 3 phones. But right now consoles are also not there yet. And I don't think Xbox is going to start the wave the way Apple did with like kind of the standardization of phones. So I feel, it felt kind of, like a bummer to me, when I finally got my Series X, and I wanted to feel something, and I just felt so nothing playing it. And that's something I didn't feel at all with the PS5. It looks crazy. The controller's doing wild stuff. There's stuff popping up. Maybe the parties aren't good, but it's fine. We're figuring it out. And you didn't really have any of that with the Series X. So it's interesting to see them think about, okay, well, how does the community react to this, and what is our response in turn?
Yeah. I would say, I think you described it perfectly. Like the Xbox experience comes at the cost of that new shiny feeling that you get with any new console until now, right? And I would say I'm willing to bet that when all is said and done with this generation in God knows how long, like 8 years, that Sony will have come out on top. I feel like people by and large want that new feeling when they get something of this magnitude. When they drop $500, they want it to feel substantially different.
I think it's going to be sort of a weird stalemate where Sony comes out on top, yes, as in the console space, but I think Microsoft will still be sitting pretty good spot just because of Game Pass.
Right. I mean, they're taking such divergent approaches to this generation, where with Microsoft de-emphasizing the hardware aspect of things more than we've ever seen before, and Sony very much staying the course and going with the traditional hardware-focused release model. And I think they both have their places, and I agree with you, Derek. I think that, and you as well, Steve. I think PlayStation probably will come out on top when the dust is all settled. But I think Microsoft is going to be seen as the champions of the service aspect of what gaming is becoming, and it is going in that direction. I think, at least to some extent. So it is interesting, though, to see Microsoft really de-emphasize the hardware aspect of things. And Janet, I mean, I agree. I don't have a Series X myself, but I've seen the controller, of course, and I've used the controller before. And, the design, it looks like a PC enclosure, and the controller is very similar to the Xbox One. And it doesn't feel new in the same way the PS5 does with the DualSense. And I think that's a valid approach, but it's not personally the approach I prefer, which is what I think you were saying as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next news topic. And, So, Nintendo issued a mass DMCA takedown, forcibly removing 379 fan-made games. And I was taking a look at this. It was is reported by Torrent Freak. And went to the offending site in December. The warning, which has been published online by Game Jolt co-founder and CEO Yaprak de Carmine, reads, certain material posted on the website located at GameJolt.com infringes trademarks owned by Nintendo. Nintendo requests that you disable public access to certain pages of the website located at GameJolt.com based on the following information. And then it listed a bunch of fan-made games and projects, and basically saying how they were used that. But I think the bigger issue with this, the reason they did this, not to just jump on the, oh God, Nintendo's killing fan games again, which they do, but GameJolt.com actually generated revenue from the advertising banners displayed on the site. So because they're actually making money off of these games, that's a big no-no. And that's why they were kind of sent out.
I disagree. I think Nintendo is kind of notoriously litigious when it comes to their IP.
Of course they are. This
is their jam. They love this. And I'm not saying it's necessarily like a bad thing. I mean, I'm by no means an expert on intellectual property or copyright law, but I've also seen, we talked about this a few episodes back. They shut down Captain Alex, who was making unauthorized products using Mario and stuff like that. They've shut down mods that have picked up steam. I mean, Nintendo, you don't go, it seems like, even a month without a big story about Nintendo shutting down a fan-made game or mod or product of some kind, whether it's for profit or not. And I think that, this is who Nintendo is as a corporation. Like, they are not, we just talked about Mario being Mickey Mouse earlier in the episode. And I mean, there is more than just the parallel in terms of the risk aversion in how they depict the character. It also comes down to how they litigate that copyright, how they protect that IP, because Disney again is notoriously litigious with Mickey Mouse, which again, that's their corporate
I think they
identity.
sued a kindergarten or a preschool for displaying Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I mean, you got to. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. The thing
Damn
is,
kids need to learn better.
And I've heard, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I've heard people say that this is about. It isn't necessarily about the content itself, but it's about setting the precedent that this kind of thing is not allowed, so that there's no like, oh, well, you guys noticed this, but you didn't, you let it go on. So we thought our thing was of the same nature, right? Like giving people kind of a foot in the door. And Nintendo, unlike Sega, is very keen to slam that door shut. So yeah, I mean, when I read these, I'm just like, yeah, Nintendo gonna Nintendo. Like, this is what they do.
Now, that said, the article does also say that some of the games, including one that's fantastically called Five Nights at Yoshi's, have reportedly been re-uploaded with the ads disabled and have not been taken down again yet. So I agree with you, Steve. I think, Nintendo is just kind of litigious in general, and they're known for doing this. But it'll be interesting to see if they go back with a second round of DMCAs on the pages where ads have been removed or have since been removed. So I think it's likely that they will, but perhaps it really is just the ad element that was really, pissing them off this time. But if I were a betting man, I would agree with you and say that probably they're going to go back and just try to get them all taken down regardless.
Yeah, this is very much their brand, which maybe isn't the best brand to have. I mean, a lot of other companies do this. Nintendo's not the only one that is protective of their IPs. I mean, we saw with, I'm forgetting the name of it, but, the people trying to make the PlayStation people.
Oh, yeah.
They got, just destroyed. And they kept getting, it was one thing, there's another thing, and eventually they just had to pull everything and refund everybody, and it was just this big mess. But, yes, you're within your legal right. It doesn't mean that you're not kind of a jerk, potentially, but that's always up for the fans and people to decide. But it is within their right. It is their IP. The end, basically, on that. But I would say, yeah, absolutely, Nintendo is way more notoriously known for this. That's why there's at least 2 or 3 hard drive articles written about it, right? Nintendo releases Cease and Desist Classic, right?
Yeah.
They can just keep posting that article because it's always true. They're always taking down something. And yeah, it is true that if, in terms of fighting for your IP in court, it's always easier when you have a history showing that you are someone that goes and protects that IP. That way, in case anybody tries to do anything that would be, I guess, actually hurting Nintendo, then they'll have a better case for it. But yeah, that's just kind of what they're known for. And then at this point, people sort of, I think, look for it also because I don't want to say we enjoy these stories, but there's something that people always want to read about, what did Nintendo shut down next? It's just something Nintendo's known for. And it's
we
kind
can't say
of
Nintendo's doomed anymore,
for,
so we have to find some other way to lay on Nintendo.
Exactly.
Which again, that's not defending them. It's just people like their excuses to jump on these companies, and not undeserved.
Yeah, I mean the big thing to remember here is, and again, this goes back to what Janet was saying, is having the legal authority to do something doesn't make it a morally good thing to do. Nintendo doesn't have to, legally, yeah, totally within their rights. Like Janet said, still makes them not look so great. I mean, it's not a good look to shut down fan creations that are released for free.
Right.
Which is why I think
Nintendo's the petty king.
Yeah, they really are.
I'm don't talk about Nintendo too much in the house because they might hear you.
Which is funny because it's still funny, this whole litigious nature of Nintendo when their first big game is Donkey Kong, and definitely got a little close to King Kong there, but they somehow won, and because of Universal messing up the copyright of it. The irony.
Yeah, it is true. It is funny that their first major game was essentially a knockoff.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, who's ready for some more Nintendo humor with our next next bit of news?
All right.
So, some background on this. So, Bloomberg actually put out a comprehensive history of the original Xbox, and it included some interesting comments from those involved about some attempted acquisitions by Xbox, by Microsoft, around the turn of the millennium. So this was revealed by original Xbox team members Kevin Backus and Bob McBreen, and former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. And basically, Backus says Ballmer made them go to meet with Nintendo to see if they would consider being acquired. They just laughed their asses off. Imagine an hour of somebody just laughing at you. That was kind of how that meeting went.
That quote cracks me the hell up.
Yeah.
It's the funniest. I mean, I of course, no one wants to be in that position, and I do feel bad that they...
Oh, no, that sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. But, I mean, they had to have
how
expected
was work
that.
It's I just don't even want to get into it.
Yeah,
how work was
right?
today. Let's talk about something else. Yeah, that's brutal. But
there's actually some more interesting things in here beyond Nintendo laughing at them. McBreen went on to say that we actually had Nintendo in our building in January 2000 to work through the details of a joint venture where we gave them all the technical specs of the Xbox. The pitch was their hardware stunk, and compared to Sony PlayStation, it did. So the idea was, listen, you're much better at the game portions of it with Mario and all that stuff. Why don't you let us take care of the hardware? But it didn't work out. And it didn't just target Nintendo. They also attempted to acquire EA, Midway Games, and Square Enix, with the latter two coming close to a deal. They actually had a letter of intent to buy Square, but nothing ultimately materialized, which, it would have worked out pretty well for Midway. Microsoft would have had Mortal Kombat at that point, I think. I'm not totally sure. But God, just imagine if they had actually gotten a hold of Square Enix.
I'm so glad we averted that future. And I guess we never really knew how close we really came, but man, I'm so glad Microsoft did not ultimately end up buying Square or Nintendo. That would have been, I think it would have been worse for everyone involved ultimately.
But also Nintendo on Game Pass or Game Pass on Switch, right?
Ooh.
Yep.
Tell me you haven't dreamed it. Tell me you haven't thought about it. And I
didn't even consider that.
You wake up in the night, it's a cold sweat. You're like, what if Mario Odyssey 2 was on Game Pass immediately, day one?
Right.
Man, could you imagine Nintendo giving you even like a 1 penny discount on a brand new game?
I'd say the one thing that I feel like they've gotten a little better with some of their deals. Maybe, granted, the bar was very low, but I will say, and maybe it's because I'm buying too many Nintendo games, which is probably true. But Nintendo's point system is pretty, I think, pretty reasonable. Maybe I'm just buying so much that I'm like, I have all these gold points, but and then I just use them to buy more, and the cycle continues. It's like when you think you're one-upping your credit card, but you'll never win. But yeah, the idea of any of that, it's not going to happen. But it's sometimes nice to sort of dream about it. And I mean, geez, talk about some things never change. I mean, I love the Switch. It's probably my favorite console of a long time, at least, maybe ever. It's so wonderful. But yeah, it's not it is a very impressive machine in a lot of ways, but it is not powerful. And it's true. Nintendo's best thing has always been their software. Their hardware is usually just something kind of wacky and wild. At this point, it'd be weird to have a normal Nintendo console. So, I do like that about them, but, no lies detected. But of course, Nintendo's so successful that they don't need to do that. They can just keep making their own thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Right. I mean, this is one of many stories that have come out over the decades about Microsoft's ineptitude in dealing with Japanese companies. Did they even ask anyone that maybe has done business in Japan before going with your primary product sucks? Let's talk about us making it instead. That seems like it would be a tactic that would work on a particular kind of aggressive American or Western business person.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine ever and again, I have just a cursory knowledge of Japanese culture, but I couldn't imagine that being your opener. Into a serious negotiation. Hey, I'm going to come in here and drop a savage insult, and then I'm going to tell you need to do business with me. No.
Yeah.
I
can't imagine how they thought that was going to go. Yeah.
Kind of makes sense that a lot of their acquisitions recently were mainly American companies.
Yeah, I feel like maybe these early days of Xbox, these stories we've heard, I can't remember the specifics of it, but there's a story out there about how they approached Square about working on an Xbox exclusive title. And I just remember the broad strokes of it being they fumbled it incredibly badly. Someone from Square asked them a question about what it meant to be in games, and they just didn't have an answer. They're and Square was just never mind, we're out of here. We're not doing this with you. And just other stories like that exist kind of around those early 2000s where Xbox is concerned. And I wonder, how much of that legacy in Japan has stayed with them to the point where they just don't really have an open
doesn't
door.
Really forget. Japanese businesses don't really forget that kind of stuff, from what I understand. That kind of lingers. Microsoft definitely were a bit brazen and cocky back in those days, and that turned off a lot of Japanese developers.
Well, they had those dope matching leather jackets. You can't really be you can't really be shy when you're wearing an Xbox branded leather coat.
Yeah. What Tanyak says, that was, they believe that was Capcom with Resident Evil 4.
Oh, maybe, man. Like I said, they kind of blend together. I can't keep all the gaming weird stuff, the minutia straight up here.
Well, and I love, like, and not only did they essentially go, like, yeah, your hardware sucks. Let's, work with us. They didn't just say that. They said, well, you're good at the game side of stuff, like Mario and all that stuff. Like, they were just kind of hand-waving away some of the most legendary franchises and characters in gaming. Just Mario and all that stuff. You do what your little game stuff. That's cool. We'll handle the important stuff, the hardware, because you suck at it. Like, it's kind of an insult on two fronts.
Wasn't it a rumor that the reason they wanted to buy Rare is that they thought they had the IP for Donkey Kong and they wanted Donkey Kong?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never heard that, but I mean, I also am not a huge Donkey Kong fan, so
I feel like I remember hearing something about that. Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's just a rumor that spun out of control or not, though.
I love what Eddie Beals says here in the chat. Banjo-Kazooie are actually based off a prototype of Master Chief as a Smash fighter, where Chief was carrying the rest of the Halo series on his back. Ouch. Ouch. I love it.
Oh boy, but
Oh, Rob Arman X here is offering some clarification. They didn't buy Rare specifically for DK, but they thought they got the rights after the buyout, which...
That's it.
I haven't even taken Business 101 or IP, Ownership 101, and I would know that that's not what that means. What the... Mm-hmm. What? How do you even... That's
like if somebody else bought Next Level, it's like, well, we get Luigi and Punch-Out now, right?
Yeah. Like, how did they think that was going to... Oh, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
We'll just write it off, say they weren't too serious yet.
Yeah,
sure,
there you go.
Sure, yeah.
All right. Well, I think with that, we have covered all of the major headlines from today's news. But before we sign off, Janet, where can we find you at?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at Gameonysus. That's Gameonysus. That's my newly launched Patreon, my Twitch, my YouTube, my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram, and my TikTok, and maybe something else that I forgot to name. Probably LinkedIn, actually. I think it's still /Gameonysus. But yeah, literally all those places.
The brand is strong.
Yes, the brand is strong and hard to pronounce. Take it. You get a plus, you get a minus. If you go to my Twitter too, like there's like a Linktree page that kind of links off to everything for your convenience. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Nice.
And of course, we have to give a extra special thanks to all of our patrons at the producer tier for helping make this show happen. It really couldn't be a thing without you, as Jen explained with her own Patreon. Like, we are extremely grateful for each and every one of you. But of course, we also have to give a massive thank you to all of our patrons at the executive producer tier and above. And those fine folks include Rob Arman X, Dan Inchwhistle, Zipati, Adam O'Sullivan, Floating Mew, Christopher, The D-Pad, Vesmio, Waffle King, Kieran Phillips, Benny Yao, Rosa Bowling,
hi Mom,
Geller, Shiny Turkey, Titus Malvolio, Jake Pelka, Michael Phone, Mitchell Herring, Game Explain, Charles Zaz, Andrew Medeiros, Jonathan Belmare, Kitty Kong Facts, Patrick Harrison, Scott Barber, Evernight Studio, Rocks the Cat, Loyal Dingo, Azran127, Phantom23, Sean Garrett, Shadow the Cat, Guillaume Monet, Kai Ed, and a brand new executive producer, Kit Fisto 250. So thank you all for that. And remember that you too could become a patron over at patreon.com/GVGaming, where you can watch today's news tonight live for as little as $5 a month. So thank you all so much for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Good Vibes Gaming for more good times like these. And until next time, good night and good vibes.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.